A 1.5 inch scale Allchin Royal Chester traction engine renovation. This is episode 1, the introduction. The engine arrives in my workshop for the preliminary inspection. In order to make these videos, I need engines to work on. Sometimes I buy them myself, but most of the time these engines belong to my customers. The sequence normally starts off as a phone call or an email, followed by some digital photographs, and after seeing those, I can assess whether the job is going to be suitable for me. I charge a fixed fee for examining engines, and then if I get the job of repairing the engine, the initial fee is knocked off the price. It's not like getting an estimate for car repairs. With things like this, spare parts are generally not available other than raw castings. I have to be very careful when I quote a price for a job, because with things like this, a small job can rapidly develop into a really long and laborious repair. This is a 1.5 inch scale Allchin Royal Chester traction engine. Here it is in my second workshop, the one that's attached to the house, and the first thing I'm doing is lubricating every moving part. This engine shows evidence of having been steamed frequently. I can see this by looking in the smoke box. The owner told me that he bought this engine via Facebook Marketplace, and he got it for a very good price indeed. And the current owner has no intention of steaming it. He just wants it as a display item that he can occasionally run on compressed air. And that's what I'm going to do to test it. And now a health and safety warning disclaimer. The boiler of this small traction engine does not have a boiler certificate. Physically, the boiler looks to be very well made, but I do not recommend pressurizing any boiler that doesn't have a test certificate. I made the owner aware of the process for obtaining a boiler hydraulic test certificate, but as it is going to be a display item, I will not be testing the boiler, and when you see it running in this video series, the compressed air pressure is very low at around 30 pounds per square inch. Please do not try this at home. After thoroughly oiling every moving part, I applied 30 pounds per square inch to the boiler. If you look closely, you can see the pressure on the pressure gauge, and it's very low. The rear of the traction engine is lifted up and it's sat on a plastic box. This allows me to test the gears without it running off the bench. There's a bit of a problem with the mechanical lubricator. It's blowing back. This is quite common with mechanical lubricators. However, as soon as I saw it doing this, I stopped the engine and rotated the ratchet to manually pump some oil into the steam chest. Time to fully open the regulator and see if anything drops off. The clunk that you've just heard is my compressor switching on. This first run is encouraging. I can see 1 or 2 problems, and for me the main problem with this traction engine is its physical size. It's very small, and some of these parts are really tiny. It's a bit dirty, the paint is chipped in places, but I'm going to be doing quite a lot more to it than cleaning and repairing the paintwork. This small traction engine is highly detailed and very well made. If I was going to steam this model, I would change the water gauge and make one very similar to the one that I made for my large Showman's engine. Once I've done some of the mechanical work, as I go along I'm going to clean a lot of these parts that you can see. For instance, the paint on this gear selector is very badly chipped, and the best thing to do is scrape it all off and start again. What I'm really looking at here is the state of the metalwork. As you can clearly see, the regulator rod is a bit rusty, but it's only surface rust and it should remove easily. I'm going to make a locking pin for the reversing lever because it's missing, and it's very easy to knock it when you're moving the regulator, which puts the engine into gear when you don't want it. There is a problem with the injector. Here it is right down at the bottom behind the wheel. The water valve is stuck fast, and the only way to fix this is to undo the 2 lock nuts below the tapered plug and tap it upwards. I put some water in the tank to test the axle-driven pump, which actually works okay, but there is a constant drip from the injector's overflow. By tapping underneath, the taper plug is lifted out of the hole, and now you can rotate the valve. That was an easier job than I thought it was going to be. One of the main cosmetic items on this engine that sort of spoils it is the state of the wheels. These ribs around a traction engine wheel are called strakes, and I'm going to remove the paint from the strakes. To do that, I will need to remove the wheels. Back to the injector, and here I'm squirting the water valve with some WD-40. While I was wiping off all the water that dripped onto the bench from the injector, I noticed how good the wheels were. The lining is quite amazing and in good condition. as is the paintwork and lining on the cylinder. The front cap is a bit dirty and rusty, that needs cleaning up. This is a very interesting traction engine of a type that I've not seen before. It will only turn right, you can't turn left. That's because the chain's broken off. I need to obtain a new chain and make a fitting to secure it to the spud pan at the front. That's the round bit on the axle. This is just one example of some of the refinements on this engine, and it's very well made. Here I'm testing the reversing lever, and when I move it from left to right, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It slides the gears on a spline shaft to engage and disengage from the main drive. Even though this engine is very small, it's extremely detailed. This nut underneath the big end pulls down the taper pin to tighten the bearing brasses. I'm using a very small spanner to tighten it, and I'm being very careful not to shear it off. Depending on the scale, when you work on miniature steam engines, the smaller they get, the more delicate the parts are. And you have to develop just the right amount of feel to be firm yet delicate at the same time. Adjusting the cotter pin made a difference. There is a little bit of play in the main bearings. These will need some adjustment. I thought I may as well put the engine to work. The outer rim of the flywheel was very rusty, so I'm holding some Scotch-Brite against it whilst the engine is running, and very slowly and very surely the Scotch-Brite removes the rust. Although when I wipe the rim of the flywheel after the Scotch-Brite, I can see there's still a way to go. It runs very well, but I can feel some play in the crankshaft, particularly at the flywheel end. I will have to remove the bearings, adjust them and refit them. I'll show that later on in the series. My 4.5 inch scale Showman's engine has a working water lifter, and so does this. When I open the steam valve to the water lifter, you can see that there's considerable suction by the amount that the bunker tank lid moves up and down. I was pleased that this worked. I will test it fully and see how much water it pulls. If I cover the inlet with my thumb, I can feel the suction. This concludes the introduction. I've done a little bit more in it than I would normally do. I'm quite looking forward to restoring this beautiful little traction engine to a good standard. But that's it for now. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.